Shri Sai Ram. Dear students, welcome back again for the 10th class State Syllabus Science Textbook 1 and the chapter Control and Coordination. Today's part 5 out of 6 we will be dealing with the same human nervous system. Under that, the second division of this system for our better understanding called as PNS, that is peripheral nervous system, and ANS, that is autonomic nervous system. Before we pass on to today's part 5 of PNS and ANS, let us recap our previous class main points. In our previous classes, we understood that neuron is the structural and functional unit of nervous system. Further, we understood about the central nervous system, that is CNS, which mainly dealt with the brain and the spinal cord. I apologize here for the spelling mistake of the human brain. Let this spelling be B-R-A-I-N, brain, and spinal cord. Under brain, we dealt detailedly about the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Further, the same CNS which had another part called as spinal cord, and it is the center for reflex action. The reflex arc is the pathway of the nerve impulse that is involved in reflex action. Hope we understood about these points in our previous class under the human nervous system. After completing the CNS, let us once again verify the assignment 4. Answers for the assignment 4. What is reflex action? Give example. A reflex action is an automatic response to an external stimulus. Example, the blinking of eyes. When do the eyes blink? When dust falls, when flies, small minute flies start to move in front of our eyes, then the eye starts to blink. The blinking of eyes is an example for reflex action. Explain reflex arc with an example. The pathway of the nerve impulse involved in reflex action is called reflex arc. The pathway is the receptor. From the receptor, the stimulus moves to the sensory neuron. From the sensory neuron, with the help of associative neuron, it enters to the motor neuron. It enters to spinal cord. Then from the spinal cord, it again moves to the motor neuron. From there to the effectors. When we touch a hot object, we withdraw our hand. Is an example for the reflex arc as well as for reflex action also. Hope all the answers are being perfect which all of you have written. If it is so, then it shows that you have understood and you have once again revised in your respective places about our previous session. And now we move on to the today's part 5 of the human nervous system. Under that, the PNS, let us take. Peripheral nervous system. It is nothing but the cranial and the spinal nerves along with their branches form the peripheral nervous system. The cranial nerves originate from the brain. The spinal nerves, extremely sorry, here you make it as spinal nerves, not the peripheral nerves, spinal. So spinal nerves, cranial nerves arise from the brain. Spinal nerves arise from the spinal cord. Cranial nerves, 12 pairs. Spinal nerves, 31 pairs. Cranial nerves spread throughout the head, whereas the spinal nerves throughout the body. Cranial nerves, they are sensory nerves and motor nerves, but spinal nerves, only mixed nerves they are. This is the difference between the cranial nerves and the spinal nerves. Hope we applied here for the slight mistake of instead of spinal, it is there the peripheral. Autonomic nervous system, ANS. In the whole human nervous system, for our better understanding, we had divided it into 3 divisions. If you go back to our previous classes, you can remember the whole human nervous system into CNS, PNS and ANS. And here we are with the last division for our understanding to the 10th class level, the autonomic nervous system, ANS. It is a self-governing nervous system, self-imposed, self-governing. It itself is the boss, it itself is the servant. Lies outside and parallel to CNS. It regulates variety of functions which are not under the control of the will. They are involuntary functions. It consists of 2 parts. The 2 parts which it consists of, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, where in short we can tell SNS, sympathetic nervous system, PSNS, parasympathetic nervous system. Both are antagonistic, means what? Opposite to each other. Even though both are found in the ANS, but these both are opposite to each other in their functions. Sympathetic nervous system prepares for violent actions. The parasympathetic nervous system re-establishing the normal conditions in the body. It re-establishes the normal conditions in the body. A very important about the autonomic nervous system. It's a self-governing and it has 2 parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Whereas the sympathetic nervous system, all abnormal conditions, abnormal reactions to the stimulations, and the abnormal reactions will always be either violent or it will be very in a depressed mood also. And the parasympathetic nervous system, it brings back to the normal condition of all those responses. So both are going hand in hand, and both should go hand in hand. Both must go hand in hand, because our chapter only tells us control and coordination. You should eat sweets. You should cooperate with the sweets by eating them also. But there should be a limit. That is control. So control and coordination, how they are antagonistic. Because of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to tell us that the body functioning will be in a normal as well as violent. Immediately the violent actions comes to normal, or the normal actions immediately moves on to the violent actions. All because of these two systems in the autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, which all the activities in the body or the life processes in the body which are being termed as sympathetic. Increase of heartbeat, normal heartbeat, dilates the pupil of the eye, constricts the pupil of the eye. Increase in blood pressure, it is sympathetic. Normal blood pressure. Inhibits the secretion of saliva. Stimulates the secretion of saliva. These are all the examples, some of the activities of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. If you observe this, you will be knowing by observing the pupil of the eye. See the pupil of the eye of this person picture and the pupil of the eye of this person's picture, where here it is normal, but here it is abnormal. The dilation of pupil of the eye, the constriction of pupil of the eye. The constriction of pupil of the eye. The sympathetic and parasympathetic. Yourself start finding more examples of the activities which you carry out daily, day in and day out, from your early morning till the night while you go to bed. You can list out what all the activities which you perform, how many of them are sympathetic and how many of them are parasympathetic, which benefits you for the continuity and the better understanding of the autonomic nervous system. Dear students, today's class we understood about the control and coordination. Under that, the human control and coordination of other two divisions. One was PNS and the other was ANS. The PNS consists of the brain nerves which are called as cranial nerves and also the spinal nerves which come from spinal cord. Further, their comparative study, and then we continued with autonomic nervous system, which is nothing but ANS, which is a self-governing system, and also it has two parts which are antagonistic in their functions or opposite in their functions. They are sympathetic nervous system SNS and parasympathetic nervous system PSNS, where the sympathetic was all the violent actions which are not relating to the normal body condition, and the parasympathetic nervous system starts to re-establish the violent actions and brings back to the normal conditions in the human body. For our better and more benefit understanding part, we have with you all the assignment 5. I hope all the students are revising what is done on that day. Work while you work, play while you play. That is the way to be happy and gay. So in your working time, minimum, how we saw the autonomic nervous system, self-governing. So all of you should have self-discipline. The self-discipline makes you self-confidence. The self-confidence brings in you the self-realization. The self-discipline imposed by any person surely will reach his goal or her goal also. If you think of great personalities, if you turn out the pages of all the greatest personalities or the good personalities who have done, who have sacrificed their life, their blood, their flesh, their kith and kin for the sake of the nation or the world's peace and happiness, all of them had this self-discipline. The self-discipline brings in all the self-confidence, and that self-confidence will lead to the self-realization. Self is nothing but knowing ourselves. Who am I? I am nothing but the divine. I am the Atma. That is the ultimate knowledge. Dear children, all this knowledge what we are studying, it is ever changing. Every time it changes. The 10th class about the CNS, PNS, ANS, what you have understood, when you go to higher classes, more deeper the same content will be there, which you may not have read now, but it will come to the further higher classes according to your mental IQ. So the knowledge is vast and it is changing. And finally, this will lead us to the ultimate knowledge, which is never changing and everlasting. That is the Atmagnana. That is the knowledge of wisdom. We call that as wisdom, not the knowledge. Knowledge differs from wisdom. Knowledge is changing, temporary, but wisdom is permanent and never changing, which is immortal. Knowledge will lead to wisdom. As you go on understanding this deeper, you will come to realize who has done all this. The whole creation of this human body, and in the human body about the human nervous system, so neatly it is been organized, the functions and the parts. Themselves they are doing their functions. All the life activities in the body are being carried out by themselves. Self-discipline. So that makes us to realize the ultimate goal of self-realization. Dear students, hope that all of you will impose among yourselves the self-discipline of doing the work that is allotted that day in that day, and also revising it so that it will benefit for you for the further coming classes. Assignment 5. List out the differences between cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Second question. Explain sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system with an example. Whenever you write the differences here, try to bifurcate by putting a column in the middle and writing cranial nerve, spinal nerve separately. The exam point of view, your presentation of the answer fetches more marks. I hope all of you will surely follow this and realizing ourselves to the ultimate knowledge, which is nothing but the knowledge of ourselves. That is the wisdom. That is, I am divine. Aham Brahmasmi. Let us realize to that goal by offering all our work at the lotus feet of God and making it worship. Have a good day to all of you. Thanking you one and all. Jai Sai Ram.